Good evening everyone and welcome to tonight's webinar from the Reiki Guild. Tonight we're going to take a look at Reiki and Addictions. You may notice that you've got Val and me on webcam today, which is a new feature of GoToWebinar that we haven't had before. I'm getting progressively darker, I think, as the light fades, but Val's got a daylight lamp so you can see her nicely for the rest of the evening. I'm Louise Carden. Those of you who've been on the webinars before, I'm a registered teacher with the Reiki Guild and I usually host these webinars. And I've got with me this evening Val Goff, and she's an addictions counsellor, drugs and alcohol, as well as being a Reiki master. And she's here this evening to do the bulk of the talking on the webinar. So I'm just going to run through a few technical things. If any of you haven't been on one of our webinars before, if you can't hear us, check that your speakers are on and you've got no loose connections anywhere. Very often there is a simple explanation. Sometimes our internet or your internet drops out. Can go for a few minutes and you lose the sound, but it just generally come back. If you don't panic and just wait a bit, it very often comes back on. The quality of the internet is something that I have no control over, I'm afraid. Now, you should be seeing a chat box in the top right-hand corner of your screen. Unfortunately, if you're watching this on an iPad, you may not have full functionality on this. If anyone is on an iPad and they have got full functionality, I'd be delighted to know if that now does work. Now, you can type messages and comments in this box. There's a questions and a chat box, and I will be keeping an eye on that during the course of the evening to see if you've got any questions. We will be having the opportunity to ask questions at the end, and I'd really appreciate it if you'd wait until the end. But by all means, if you have a question and you're worried you might forget it before we get to the end of the presentation, pop it in the question box and I will mention it when we get to the end of the presentation. There will also be the opportunity at the end to speak to us directly. We can unmute you so that you can speak to Val directly. Now you can also, there's a little hand icon and you can attract my attention by pressing on that hand icon. And I would like you all to press that hand icon now so that I know that you can all hear me. So if everyone can click on that hand icon. Yep, great. That's fantastic. I did a webinar 2 weeks ago when nobody could actually hear me, and it was quite a while before I realized that no one was hearing me. Diana, can you hear me? Not seeing your hand raised. Adrian, can you hear me? Can't see your hand. Okay, well the majority of people have got their hands raised, so it's not me if they can't hear me. And one more thing, you may notice from the webcam that I'm wearing headphones. If you have headphones, you may find them helpful. Sometimes if the quality of the sound isn't so good, having the headphones helps, and also a mic if you want to speak to us live later on. Not everybody's got great quality microphones on their computers. So that's all the technical bits and pieces. Hopefully everybody's in the room now who's coming and you've got everything working. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hand the whole thing over to Val. She's just going to let me know when she wants the next slide, and we've allowed, I don't know, 15 minutes or so for questions at the end. So I'm going to allow Val to just do her presentation, and then at the end we'll get into some Q&A. Okay, Val, over to you.
Thank you, Louise. Good evening, everyone. My name is Val Goff, and as Louise says, I'm a Reiki master, actually, and an addictions counsellor. I first started in the drugs field, drug and alcohol field, 13 years ago, and it was on a structured day program, and I still actually work on the same program, and people come to our program through the courts to address their substance misuse. So we offer all sorts of things, one-to-one counselling, group work, therapies and alternative activities, constructive activities like art and IT. So back in the day, 13 years ago, the only therapy that was on offer was acupuncture, auricular acupuncture. For those that are not familiar with that, it's just placing fine needles into certain points in the ear. And the idea being to help with detoxification, relaxation, and it really was a beneficial part of the treatment. However, what I realised was that some people weren't accessing the acupuncture, and I didn't know why. Even though the peers were saying to them that it was a really good thing to do, it was really relaxing, it really helped them to address their addiction problems. So I asked the people who weren't accessing the acupuncture, and they said that although they are injecting drug users, they don't like other people sticking needles in them. And others said that they tried it and they really couldn't get on with it. So I went on a bit of a mission because I thought, well, what can these guys have, because they're not getting any form of relaxation. And I hadn't heard of Reiki, I didn't know anything about Reiki at all. And suddenly it just kept started popping up in magazines and on the TV, and what is this thing? And whatever I found, it had to be cost effective to the organisation. It had to be manageable within the environment that we were in. So I was snookered with a lot of the other therapies. So I looked into Reiki and I thought, well, yeah, that could work. How do I go about finding a class? And then, funny enough, they say that Reiki finds you. There was a class advertised in the local mail. So I went, and within a year I became a Reiki master. And the reason I was so desperate to become a Reiki master was because I wanted to attune the clients so that they could self-heal when they left program. They're with us for a period of 6 months, and it's not always long enough to complete the treatment, to be fair. So I thought a really valuable tool to take away with them. So that's a little bit about the background of how I got into it. So why do a webinar on addictions? Thank you, Louise. Addiction is common. I will be referring to my notes as well, so if you can only see the top of my head, I do apologise. But I don't want to miss anything out, and I'm trying to include all the questions that you might have, but like I say, I will have time at the end to answer questions. Addiction is common, and it seems to be becoming more common as we seem to be living in a more stressful world. So many people these days are facing actually maybe one addiction or more addictions, and in my opinion and in some of my peers' opinions, we believe that obsessive compulsive disorder and addictions are more or less, well, they're very similar. There's a very fine line between them. So lots of people have obsessive compulsive disorders as well as addictions, and these things can adversely affect someone's health over the course of time. Addictions certainly do take a toll on someone's spirit and the ways that we think and feel and behave in everyday situations such as family life, career, relationships and finances. Basically, addictions can play themselves out just about anywhere in our lives. So Reiki can, and it does help with addiction. When we think about the benefits of using Reiki with people who are in the grip of addiction, the list is actually endless. And I don't want to teach my grandma to suck eggs, but I think we all know what benefits that brings to anyone who has a treatment. And I would just like to point out that people who are experiencing problematic addiction of any sort, that they are often feeling very judged, stressed, anxious and depressed, dealing with cravings, low self-esteem, feeling quite powerless, and generally, quite understandably, very negative. And so offering Reiki unconditionally to a person feeling some or all of those things can actually help reverse many of the negative experiences that they're having, and does provide immediate feelings of well-being and deep relaxation. So that alone can actually help the person to realise that
Val, I seem to have lost the sound. Can you hear me? Okay, can I have a show of hands? Has everybody lost Val? Can you put your hand up? Okay, so you can still hear me, but you can't hear Val. Okay, it's an interesting development. I suspect she's got a problem with her internet. If we just hang on for a couple of minutes, see whether she comes back. Val, if you can hear me, can you type into the questions box? No. Okay. Okay, Val, can you hear me?
whether you're Reiki 1, whether you're Reiki 2 or whether you're Reiki 3.
Okay, Val, just to stop
Yeah.
you a minute, you actually went offline for about a minute.
Right, okay.
I don't know.
I noticed I've disappeared.
Yeah, we lost the
I didn't know
sound.
whether you could still hear me.
No, we couldn't hear you at all. So I don't know whether you can go back a little way. It wasn't very far. It was about a minute that you were gone.
I think it happened at the time I was just starting. Oh.
Yeah, you're still there.
Are we there?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
My screen's gone totally blank.
Ah, you got nothing. Can you hear me, Val? I suspect there's a problem with Val's internet. Just before she went then, she told me her screen had gone completely blank. Just see whether she comes back again. Okay, she's gone completely. And she came back on. Okay, Val, are you back? You're back.
I'm just ringing you.
Yeah, I think there's a problem with your internet. I don't know whether it's worth you logging out and logging back on to the webinar. It's very unusual to lose people like this during a webinar. In fact, it's never happened to me before. Okay, let's carry on. If it happens again, I suggest you log out and log back in. Okay? Okay. Right, so let's try again.
I think it happened when we got on to help members feel more confident in challenging Reiki and when I was presenting with addiction and recognise their own limitations. Yeah. I think this is really important. Whether you're level 1, 2 or 3, you can help someone who is presenting with addiction. the point is to recognise your own limitations and to know exactly where to go with things. So I'm going to cover that now. I did talk to Louise about, I missed it actually, the webinar on animals and Reiki. And Louise was telling me that the speaker made a point of saying that although anybody can treat animals, it is wise maybe to have a little bit of knowledge about the animal that you're treating. For instance, how to approach a horse. You know, I mean, I don't know much about horses, so I wouldn't feel confident in approaching a horse. Even though I'd feel confident about giving it Reiki, I wouldn't quite know how to approach it. So it's a similar thing when with a specific client group. What I would say is that if you wish to help someone with addictions and you are, say, level 1, 2 or 3 and you are not familiar with addiction, maybe work alongside their worker. They may be involved with mental health services or may be involved with drug and alcohol services, and it's a good idea to get the permission from the client to work alongside, because then they can take the strain and you've got your boundaries set out. You know, your client, if your client then starts talking to you about things that you don't quite know how to respond to, then they can go to the person that knows. But I am going to give everybody a technique a bit later on that we can all use. So I have actually known drug and alcohol workers be quite nervous when channeling Reiki to someone with a drug or an alcohol problem for the first time, even though they are aware of the issues and they know the issues and they can respond to the issues. It's still quite nerve-wracking, and I know it happens with other groups, such as people who do Reiki with people with autism or learning disabilities or eating disorders. So it's not always easy to know what to say to people unless you understand what's going on. So it's always worth checking out. I think even people who are Reiki 1 will check out with someone what's going on for them, because if somebody's got a broken bone, for instance, you wouldn't heal that area until they'd had it set. So it's common sense really on how you would proceed with somebody with addiction. So if we can have the next slide, please. How can Reiki help? What is addiction? So what actually is addiction? I think it's probably a good idea to just confirm what we mean by addiction before we carry on much further. Okay. And a simple non-clinical definition of addiction is too much of just about anything. So whether it's a substance such as alcohol, drugs, cigarettes, and food behaviours, and by that I mean overeating and undereating. It could be sex, a relationship, extreme sports, gambling, or any other behaviour or behaviours that are becoming problematic in some way. Let's remember, nothing's a problem unless it's a problem. So where does consumption of something or involvement in our experience of cross that magic line from simple habit into the realm of addiction? Well, the general rule of thumb is that addiction is present when a person becomes so dependent on a particular substance, behaviour, relationship, state of mind, etc., that they cannot easily let go of it, even when it is obviously so detrimental and destructive to them. So for instance, most people are aware of the health hazards of substance abuse, and they may even already be suffering health consequences, yet continue with the behaviour. I've treated clients many a time, and the doctor said to them, if you don't stop injecting in your groin, you're going to lose your leg. And they carry on injecting in the groin and they lose the leg. So it's sometimes that's quite intentionally, and at other times it's just feeling powerless to change. So denial and minimisation of the dangers involved are very common characteristics of what we call addictive patterning. An addiction can therefore be thought of as a habit or behaviour that may be difficult to recognise and also very hard to change or break. The withdrawal problems such as cravings and other symptoms that accompany every addictive pattern are often referred to as dependency in addiction recovery circles, and the person with the addiction comes to depend upon their addictive habit or behaviour to escape not only the withdrawal process but to also avoid dealing with whatever caused the addiction to take hold in the first place, and this is where the root of the problem lies. So that's roughly a bit about addiction. I think that's enough to give us a picture. So if we go on to slide 3, please Louise, how can Reiki help with addictions? I really need to emphasise that usually Reiki is not a standalone therapy in addiction. It's an adjunct to conventional medical and psychological care, and indeed my clients are usually involved in some sort of talking therapy alongside their Reiki sessions. Key workers and counsellors do often feedback that their clients are more calm, open and honest when they are receiving Reiki as part of their treatment plan. I think before, when I knew I was doing this webinar, Louise mentioned that one member had been in touch about advertising. How do we go about advertising that Reiki helps with addictions? I think the best thing to do is just not make any false claims and just say that what Reiki is and how it can help with addiction. And after the webinar, I think people will understand how it can help with addiction. And I would just like to say that I am available to any of you if you want to contact me, and with any, if you need any tips or how to introduce Reiki into your, how to introduce Reiki and addictions into your practice. And if you want to know anything else about it, that offer is there at the moment. I do have literature and things that I do, that I give out, so you're very welcome to tap into that if you want to. So it's not a standalone therapy. It does offer immediate feelings of well-being and deep relaxation, like I said earlier, at least for a short time. And it does encourage retention in services. This is something that I've found out over the years with different managers that I've had, because it depends on the manager that's managing the project and the other projects where there are Reiki practitioners practicing Reiki with drug and alcohol problems. When Reiki is on in the services, the retention rate goes up because it's renowned for drug and alcohol users to, within the services, that they don't keep their appointments very well. Many of them are still actively using, have other things on their mind really than attending their drug worker appointments. But when they know they're going to get Reiki, they turn up. And that is because they know that they will either have Reiki and then a one-to-one session with their key worker or their counsellor or a group, and that they are going to manage that so much better after the Reiki session, or they know that they're going to have that time with their key worker, counsellor or group and then have a Reiki session after. And so if it's been a tough experience talking about their problems, then they're going to feel better after the Reiki. so the retention rates do go up, and that's been noticed by the managers, and at the moment they're really looking at it seriously again to expand the Reiki services that we offer within the drugs field, because what I find, I usually train the drug workers up in Hull to treat the service users, and then they leave you know, and take it to other services, which is fine, but it just means our services in Hull are a Reiki practitioner short than the drug services. But that's fine, that's how it goes. And I just have to constantly battle, depending who's managing, to get more drug workers trained up. So it's not always easy. So we talked about clearing addictive patterning earlier. There's a technique that I actually use for this, and I picked this up from an article years ago from a lady called Diane Ruth Shoemaker, and I've adjusted it a little bit, so I'm going to go through it with you. So if you're Reiki 1, Reiki 2 or Reiki 3, anyone can use this technique. I do use the symbol Seihei Ki, which is generally level 2 Reiki.
Looks like we've lost Val again. Val, can you hear me? I do apologise about this, but it must be an internet problem at Val's end. So hopefully she is now going to log off and log back on, as I suggested she tried after the last time we lost her. So we're just going to okay. Can you hear me? Can I have a show of hands if you can still hear me? Right, can I just have a show of hands? Can you put your hands up if you can hear me again? I actually lost my internet connection this time. Hi, can anybody hear me? Hi, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I didn't know I couldn't hear you.
No, I went off, and I'm assuming that everybody else went off as well. We got to the point where you were just about to teach the exercise about clearing addictive patterning. So I'm just going to ask the audience. I pretty much, did everyone lose the webinar? Please show me, give me a show of hands if you lost the webinar just as Val began to talk about the exercise. Can I have a show of hands if you can hear me, please? Okay. Thank you. I'm just going to put your hands down. Now, can I have a show of hands if you lost me? Okay. Yeah, I think I'm going to put your hands down. And can I have a show of hands if you also lost Val? Okay, so looks as though they may still have heard you, Val, but I didn't hear you. Okay, sorry. The fact is that I didn't hear you, so I probably will have not caught it on the recording. So can you start at the beginning of the exercise again?
Okay.
Because I didn't get any of that. My internet connection went down.
Did you get the bit about the spirit of Reiki and Seiheki
No.
symbol being?
No. I lost it when you said you can use this technique if you're Reiki 1, 2 or 3, but we do normally use the Seiheki symbol.
Right, okay.
And then I lost you, which means
Right.
I won't have recorded it from then on.
Okay.
It's very unusual. It's never happened before, but so if you could just run through that again, so I've got it recorded for people who don't come on live.
Well, I was basically saying that the way I use Reiki to work with addictions is through the mental emotional symbol, Seiheki. And in the Spirit of Reiki book, on page 128, it states the Japanese term for the Seiheki symbol means habit or disposition or tendency toward, which is just something of interest. So if we're going to pick well, it's not an easy addiction. Giving up smoking is probably one of the hardest addictions there is, but it's a more common one. So somebody wants to stop smoking and comes to you for Reiki to help them to stop smoking. So you could sit down with a person and the goal is to stop smoking. So we need to get some affirmations written down from the client about that. So it could be, I will stop smoking completely by August the 1st, 2013. I will chew the nicotine gum. I will maintain my current weight because it's well known that people who give up smoking can easily put on weight. And that could be because they're replacing the cigarettes with sweeties or just generally overeating. So maintaining the current weight could lead them on to another affirmation, which could be eating healthy foods. I will eat healthy foods. And then something about the self. I am a worthy and confident person. The essence of my being is love, could be another one. And I will look for the answers to my questions within. And so on and so on and so on. Whatever resonates with the client, get it all down on paper. Okay, so that's the first bit. And then start with the Reiki treatment. So normally when someone's laid down on their back, I will connect on their shoulders. And then when the time feels right, after that connection, invoke the power symbol, chakra ray, over the person's head, as we do, and silently repeat its name 3 times as we do. And then place your left hand under the recipient's head with your fingertips at the base of the skull. Then draw Seiheki over the crown chakra and third eye areas and silently say the name of the symbol 3 times. Now I said this earlier when I think you didn't have me, Louise. If you are Reiki 1, you're not going to have these symbols. Don't let that stop you and your intention helping someone with stopping smoking, for instance, or any other addiction, obsessive compulsive behaviour. You can still do the goal and the affirmations and work with the client with it that way. So don't worry about that. Then place your your right hand across the forehead of the person with the tips of your fingers pointing towards his or her left ear, and the base of your palm towards the right ear, with clear intention. As we know, it's about intention. So call the individual's name in your mind 3 times, then repeat the goal statements and affirmations 3 times, either silently or aloud. Doing it aloud allows the client to hear the words during the treatment, which further reinforces the potential for healing. Sometimes silence will feel more appropriate, however, and at other times you may wish to involve the client even further by asking him or her to repeat the affirmations aloud with you. I would go with the client's agenda. As long as they know what the options are, then go with that. So after you've finished that step, hold the position silently until the process feels complete. Trust your intuition on this one. This can be as short as 2 or 3 minutes for as long as 15 or more minutes, and I've experienced anything within those times. And then continue with your regular Reiki session until it's done. So at the end of the session, it's a good idea to give the client a copy of the goal and the affirmations, and suggest that between the sessions he or she repeat them several times a day to help reinforce and activate the healing process. And as we know, Reiki goes on working as well, so the two go very well together. And just repeat the technique at regular intervals with the client. So say the person does achieve their goal by the 1st of August 2013, then we need to carry on with the Reiki sessions and maybe adjust the affirmations, because they're now a non-smoker, so they would be saying, I am a non-smoker, I am chewing this nicotine gum, I am maintaining my current weight, I am eating healthy foods, yeah? And then what we might need to do after that is a new goal, because we don't want them stuck on chewing this nicotine gum. So it might be a new goal of, I will stop chewing the nicotine gum so-and-so, so-and-so, and then all the affirmations under that, and repeating the process all the time. If I'm making this sound easy, it's not. I don't want to make it sound easy. It requires commitment and dedication from the person who wants to give up the addiction. It also requires dedication from the person who's helping them as well with the goals and their affirmations. So once the goal of quitting has been reached and it's been maintained, then there may still be some deep physical, emotional, mental or spiritual cleansing, or all of those, and release to let go of the old patterning that held the addiction in place within the energy anatomy. So ongoing treatments as well as other healing modalities will help with this. And this is where attuning someone who has addiction is really beneficial, because then they can go on to self-treat or self-treat alongside the treatments that they're receiving from the Reiki practitioner. So that leads me nicely on to attuning the clients to be able to self-heal. Yeah, our clients are attending up to maybe 4 times a week, a couple to 4 times a week, and they're all at very different stages of their addiction and treatment. And for those that are interested, I will attune them to Reiki and teach them the importance of self-healing, so that when they leave program, they've got this very valuable tool to take away with them. Nobody can take that away from them. Even if they get back into addiction, nobody can take that away from them. If they're still using drugs, I will spend just a few hours with them going through the basics of Reiki, and I will give them one attunement which I believe will open up the channels so that they can self-treat. If they are well on with the recovery, then I will take them through the full level 1 course. Sometimes that's difficult because time doesn't always allow. Normally on my Reiki 1 courses it's a 2-day course, and that's an absolute luxury if I get that with my clients on program. So I just do my best. I just don't let anything get in the way, really. The reason that I make the distinction between 1 attunement and the full level 1 is because, as we know, people need to focus on themselves and their own recovery before they can help anybody else, and they understand that as well, and they know which is most suitable for them. And one of the things that keeps me going is the client feedback. It's always so positive, especially after they've been attuned. You know, they come back and say everything about their life has changed. They go home, they feel very different, and they feel very special, and they've got a feeling of self-worth, and the knock-on effect that that has within the relationships and the family is amazing. So the relationships improve, trust builds up more quickly, and that leads to sustained recovery. Can't ask for any more than that. So now it's question time.
Okay, so if you've got a question, you can raise your hand and I will come to you and unmute your mic so you can speak to us directly. Or if you haven't got a microphone or you don't feel comfortable doing that, you can type a question in the box and I can read it out for you. So, does anybody have any questions? Would you like to raise your hand or type it into the box? Right, Alison Williamson, I'm going to unmute you, so we should be able to hear your question. Hello, Alison. Hello.
Do you have any evidence available for statistics or research regarding the success of using Reiki with addictions?
Val, did you hear that?
Could you repeat that? Could you repeat that, Louise?
Yeah, sorry. Do you have any statistics available as to the success of using Reiki with addictions? Because obviously when you're talking to people trying to obtain clients with addictions to work with Reiki, it's useful to be able to quote some research or statistics regarding this.
I haven't personally. I have evaluations and testimonials from the clients that speak for themselves. I've just been having this conversation earlier with Louise. I am at the moment, the managers, most of the managers within the organisation where I work are recognising more and more how important complementary therapies are, including Reiki, in the field. And I've just been onto the university to see if anyone's interested there in doing a qualitative trial when I'm going to start things up again soon, because we've recently had a manager who wasn't interested, and so it wasn't going ahead. So yeah, I'm on with that at the moment. There's not much research apparently on it at all. So there's not much research on Reiki.
Yeah. Yes, I've just muted you, Alison, because there's an awful lot of noise coming through your microphone. So I've just muted you. Yeah, it is very difficult to get good quality research on Reiki, and I'm not aware of any research other than case studies, as Val has said. So yeah, it is really pretty much testimonials and people like Val who've been working for years in this field who have results. But again, in something like Reiki and Addictions, you couldn't really do a controlled test, because it wouldn't really be very ethical. So at the minute there isn't much research. Okay, I'll just unmute you briefly again. So is that any help to you, Alison?
No, thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, right, I'm unmuting you again. Okay. Okay, does anybody else have a question? Raise your hand if you'd like to ask a question. Okay, Mary Ellis, I'm going to unmute you, Mary. Okay, Mary?
Hello,
All right.
Mary here, but I also work with my husband and partner as complementary therapist, Robin, and he is as interested in this, and he has Reiki as well, and he has the question he wants to ask you.
Okay.
Can you hear us all right?
Yes, yeah, I can hear you clearly.
Oh, good. Valerie, if I may, I'd like to make really more of a comment than a question, because I have a psychology called an energy psychology, which can be very, very effective with addictions. And of course, with the many things that we do in psychological help with people, we are very, very aware, being ourselves a complementary therapy, that Reiki is wonderful when put with very many other therapies. In this particular case, I would just like to mention, without taking over, forgive me, that the addict has no choice. The addictive substance always wins. And the reason is the addict is what we call permanently psychologically reversed. When a person is psychologically reversed, it means the meridians become reversed, the body's energy flows the wrong way. That leaves a person having to do exactly the opposite of what they want. So the person wants to give up smoking. Because they're psychologically reversed, this makes it impossible for them. And of course, part of our treatment is to remove that reversal. There's a lot more, but I'd be delighted to make contact with you afterwards and talk about this.
Yes, certainly, yes. That would be good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Good.
Thank you for that. Thank you.
Look
Okay,
forward to it.
Okay, thanks. I'm muting you again. Thanks. I've got a couple of questions typed in. Right, I've got a question here from Jenny. Is it possible to use this process as self-healing? Could you comment on that? I think the answer is yes, but could you just comment on that, Val?
I think the answer is yes. Self-healing. Can we do self-healing? Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, I mean, with this is the Nentatsu Ho technique. You just put your one hand on your forehead and one hand on the back of your head. Yeah, and then use that with the affirmations. So
that would be at level 2, though, wouldn't it? It'd be using the symbols. So no,
yeah.
I don't usually.
But you could also do that without the symbols.
They don't get any further than level 1.
No, but you can.
Some of them have gone on to do level 2, but they have to go to other Reiki masters because it's a conflict of interest. They would have to come to me privately, and I couldn't do it.
Yeah, but I think for the individual wanting to use this technique with the affirmations, you could use it with the affirmations without the symbols.
Yes, they could, and they can just self-treat and do the affirmations, and that's why I say anybody who is a level 1 practitioner can still do this and help someone. Yeah,
that's fine. Then I've got another question from Magda asking whether it's possible to get the information via email, please. The webinar, Magda, is being recorded. Yes, she says the information you've covered today, we will be sending, everyone who's registered for today's webinar will get a recording of this webinar so you can play it again and listen again, if that's what you mean. So you can play the webinar again and listen to it whenever you want, and you'll have the information yourself. Okay, I'm just having a look if we've got any more questions. Okay, has anybody else got any more questions? I've answered the questions that have been typed in. Oh, Adrian's popped her hand up quickly. I'm just going to unmute you, Adrian. Hi, Adrian.
Okay. Okay. It's not a question. I'd just like to thank Val and Louise for doing a fantastic job in informing us on this addiction problem.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Our pleasure. So you don't particularly have a question, you just wanted to
No.
thank us. Okay, thank you very much. I'll mute you again. Does anybody else have a question, either to type in or to ask directly? Carol Cartmel, I'm going to unmute you. Hi, Carol.
Hello there.
Hi,
Hello,
do you have a question?
Carol.
Yes, the organisation, Val, that you work for,
Yeah.
they're now becoming more broad-minded about Reiki helping the clients. So
Yes.
do you think they will employ Reiki practitioners to come in and give Reiki to the client? Is that something that might happen in the future?
They may do. They may do. I don't see why not, and it could be cheaper than training drug workers up. If they have a Reiki practitioner come in, because if a Reiki practitioner comes in who is not a drug alcohol worker, then the clients have still got access to a therapist for the issues that may come up. I would push for that, certainly. There's no reason why not.
Okay, thank you.
One step at a time, depending on who the manager is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think as you said earlier, Val, with all these things, it really does depend who's in charge. And, you know, you can have one time someone who's really sympathetic and they move on and the next person chucks it all out the window again.
The arguments I've had, it says in our, the job spec, offer therapeutic interventions, and some managers think that complementary therapies are a therapeutic intervention and others don't.
Yeah.
So I've stood my ground on that one a few times, and yeah. When I'm working one-to-one with my clients, I do it. Nobody knows what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So I just do it, and then when they fill their evaluation forms in and they say, "Oh, Reiki really helped me to stop using drugs," then my managers say, "What's this?" And I say, "Oh, well, I'm doing therapeutic interventions in my one-to-ones."
Okay. Thanks, Carol, for that question.
You're welcome.
Okay, muting you again. Okay, anybody else like to comment or ask a question? Okay, Diana, got you there. I'm just going to unmute you, Diana. Good evening.
Hi, good evening. Thank you very much for hosting this. My question is to Val, in the sense that, do you find, or is the situation that every person who goes through this process needs to want this to happen? And when I say want, I really mean want, because there are some situations where people have come to me that they want help with this, with that, but they're quite attached to their problem, and they want it in the first instance, but when they feel that they're going to lose that attention which is given to them from having this addiction, being it OCD or alcohol or something like that, they don't want to progress. And in parallel, it's almost like a contradiction. If someone is deeply rooted in an addiction, in which situation, in which state do they come to you to want to really be open and want to go through the full process? Because as I think we all know that someone in an addiction doesn't want and doesn't accept, first they have an addiction, and second doesn't want to go through anything like this. So sorry if it's a lot of questions, but I think you get the gist. Yeah, okay, thank you.
I think we're talking about denial.
Yes.
Yes.
Sometimes, many times unconsciously, yeah.
Yeah. Someone does have to want it, but I don't always think that they know whether they want it or not. It depends on how entrenched the addiction is sometimes. So people will come to our program from all different walks of life, and some will have started using at 10, 11, injecting heroin and be in their 30s. Some will have not been using for very long, and the people who have not been using it for very long could find it harder than somebody who's been using since they were 10 and in their 30s. There's no rhyme or reason to it, in my experience. There's three reasons why people walk through our doors. One of three reasons, and that's they really, really want to address their drug use. And they've got a get out of jail free card, because my clients come through the courts. So the judge says to them, right, do you want to address your drug use? If you do, you can go to this program. If not, you go to jail. So they may have gone for a get out of jail free card, in which case it'll soon catch up with them and they'll be in prison anyway. Or they really don't know. They just don't know. So they come through the door to have a look. And it's often those that come through the door to have a look that end up doing really well. Over the 13 years I've been in the field, I've played little mind games with myself, thinking to myself, oh, he'll make it, or I don't think he'll make it. And I've been proved wrong all the time. There's just no rhyme or reason to it. I do say to my clients, are you sick of it? And they say, yes, I'm sick of it, Val. And I say, are you sick of being sick of it? And they look at me and they say, yes, I'm sick of being sick of it. But each time, I mean, if they do go round and round and round, there's no doubt about that. So if anybody wants to have a look at Di Clementi and Prochaska's cycle of change, it explains a bit more about change and how people go round and round the cycle time and time again before they exit and make the changes that they need to change. It's a normal part of addressing addiction is relapse and lapse. And I really can't put my finger on it when it works. Like I say, I work with people and the doctor's saying to them, if you don't stop injecting in your groin, you'll lose your leg. You know, and they carry on injecting in the groin and they lose the leg. And they don't want to lose the leg, really. But I take your point about the attention. You know, if that's all somebody's known from being a young person, is that's how you get attention. That's a very difficult habit to break. But people do. People do. I couldn't have stayed in the field for 13 years if I didn't see good results. It would be soul destroying. Absolutely.
No, that's really helpful. Just one tiny more detail. Do you find that in your years of experience, have you adopted a more firm attitude towards this type of client than you would adopt with another person? And when I say a firm attitude, you've just mentioned that question that you said, are you sick and tired of you know, of
Are you sick of being sick of it? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So not having a forceful, because we don't support that. But do you find that with this type of people, of clients, you have to be more assertive and more sort of serious, for lack of a better word?
I do, definitely.
Okay.
Yes.
No, thank you.
Those who are in denial, which is a large proportion of them, especially at the beginning, will do anything to pull the wool over your eyes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
That's really, really helpful. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you, Dana. I'm just going to unmute you again. Okay, I'm just going to, we are up to the time, but because we had a few technical problems, we had a few gaps, I'm just going to go to Adrian, who's got her hand up again. So, Adrian. Hi, Adrian, you're back on.
Yeah, I want to congratulate you on a well-done job, because for the first time we have pictures and we have colors. So it is totally different in this webinar than we've ever had before.
Really?
So yeah, I see Val and I saw you and you were talking. And then the question, it says question time, there's a little child in color with a hand up. And then when Val was speaking, it was in very spiritual colors written out. So the last time we did a couple of webinars, they were just black and white.
Yeah, it depends on the, we've always had color, so that the Robert's slides were black and white because they were kanji, but we had color in the animal presentation. We have had colour. Having web cams of Val and myself is something that GoToWebinar only introduced about a month ago. So being able to see us is actually a new feature of the system. We haven't had that before. That is new, but we have had colour in our slides before.
Okay.
So yeah, so you like the webcam, do you?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, I think it's quite nice to have the webcam because you get more of a connection to the people who are speaking.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well done.
That's something we'll be including. Okay, so thank you for your thank yous yet again. I'm going to close you down, and I think that's it for this evening. I've just got one more slide. Let me just check the written questions before I finish up, in case I've just got a thank you there. Okay, I've got another one here. Just one last one on the written questions, Val. Do you use the same technique for all addictions? For example, someone on heroin will be treated the same as someone giving up smoking.
Oh, that's a really good question.
Yeah.
Someone who is maybe still using heroin, I would go very gently at first. It would be about retaining that person in services. So I wouldn't be doing that at first with them at all. I would just be giving them Reiki for the highest and greatest good. To help them to relax, help them to sleep, help them to feel valued, and everything else that Reiki, all the benefits that Reiki offers. And then I would, as we were working more closely together on the goals, because at first someone on heroin hasn't got any goals other than to keep on scoring to get their fix. That's their goal. So yeah, at first very gently, and then when they're ready to address their use, then look at the goals and do the affirmations, and then start with the Seiheki symbol and that technique.
Okay, great. Thank you, Val. We've got several thank yous on the question panel as well. I've just got one last slide. If any of you want to connect with Val, this is Val's website, lilacpanda.co.uk, and you can email her through that. And I believe you got some articles. Did you say you had some research or some articles up on that site?
Yeah, there is something to look at on there.
And
I would just add that I am going to be updating my website. I'm a little bit, it's a little bit outdated now, so it needs to be updated. So
okay. And the other place you can look is William Rand's site, which is International Reiki Training Centre, I think, reiki.org. On that website there's masses of information about all sorts of things, but if you just put Reiki and Addictions into the search box, it will bring up loads of articles on mainly their case studies, practitioners who have used Reiki successfully with people with drugs and alcohol problems. Some of those are quite interesting reading, so that's another place that you can find out more about that. So I do apologise again for the technical problems. I've never had such serious technical problems in a webinar before, but I lost the internet and I think Val lost the internet, so it's just one of those things, gremlins in the works tonight. But hopefully the recording has turned out okay. You'll be getting a link to the recording probably sometime tomorrow, depending on how long it takes me to sort it out, and then you can listen to it again. And of course, if you've got any other questions, you can contact Val with those. She said she'd be more than happy to connect with you regarding using Reiki with addictions. So thank you, Val, for showing up with us this evening. Thank you for everybody who listened. And there'll be another webinar in a couple of months' time, so keep an eye out for the topic on that. So good night, sleep well.